And yes, Extreem Soupathon is an initiative which we are going to be looking at today. And without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Wynand du Plessis.
Hi, thank you, Bridget. Right, a couple of things based on the outline that we discussed earlier. Who I am and what my background is. I'm a chef. My wife dresses me funny every morning when I go to work. And some people, I'm a doctor some days when they bump into me in the shopping center. Yes, I also buy food at the shop every now and then. I was lucky enough to spend a lot of time in a catering kitchen when I was at school. I studied hotel management and realized I'm not the guy that wants to wear a tie and a jacket. I want to go be in the back and all happens. And I scream and shout and has fun and the music always plays. And I started cooking and I really, really enjoyed it. I was very fortunate to work with some really, really great guys from a very young age. I trained in 5-star hotels. I ended up going overseas on an aeroplane and traveled the world. Was fortunate enough to be selected as the youngest member ever of the South African national culinary team. I competed in the national culinary team in the World Cup. I was assistant to the team for 2 years when I was doing my travels in Europe. I joined the national team, came back. I started a catering company with a business partner. It's called Extreem Kwizeen. It's still called Extreem Kwizeen. A ton of businesses that came along with it that opened and closed, but Extreem Kwizeen has remained. And yeah, lockdown started and took me 3 days before I was bored, and here we are. Now there's Extreem Soupathon and an NPC, and now I cook soup, and I'm loving it. That's pretty much where I am.
Okay, cool. So Extreem Soupathon, tell us what that is, and what made you, what sort of spurred you into. I mean, obviously lockdown's been really hard on the hospitality industry, and you know, a lot of businesses have just literally been unable to do anything. So what is it that made you decide to create this Extreem Soupathon? What is it? What do you do?
It was all by accident. We've been in Extreem Kwizeen, we've been supporting various charities, churches, soup kitchens, homeless shelters, orphanages, old age homes, not only by donating food or product that they can use, but also in identifying needs and seeing where we can point resources towards them, not necessarily something we can do. And there's so much food waste. Now we do big banquets and functions and corporate events and concerts and launches and an array of amazing events that we're fortunate enough to do for clients. Internationally acclaimed events where we do VIP hospitality, and everything is always in excess. There's always loads of food and loads of desserts. There's just more than enough of everything. And then we come and we bring all this food back in refrigerated trucks, and there's not much you can do with it. So we developed an internal system where all the food that, according to us, is still fit for human consumption, we get back into our freezers and we freeze it. And there's nothing wrong with it. And at a stage when normal run of business allows us to have a little bit of production time in our kitchens, we take this food out and we make soup from it. And then we had a very simple system where we freeze all the vegetable-based ingredients that we've turned into soup. We puree it up. We end up with a very tasty, smooth soup, and we freeze it in little 1-liter blocks. And we've been doing it for years, so it's something that's very natural to us. And we drop it off at, again, churches, charities, outreaches, various institutions and places. And I was driving on my way to a shopping center to go buy groceries for him. And I saw a lady, and she was standing with 2 blue gloves and handing some homeless people a pot of soup, literally 800 meters from my house. And I turned around, I saw her, I tried to get her number. She left by the time I got to where she was. I tracked her down, and it started with 45 cups of soup. I had 300 liters of soup in my freezers at work. And we're now making a lot more than 45 cups of soup a day. And it's just been a growing thing every day. And it's this organic thing that just doesn't stop. Almost like a little compulsion on the side, but yeah, it's better than sitting at home and watching my succulent garden growing.
So how much soup are you producing now that you do have time on your hands?
Currently, it's difficult. It's a moving target every day. Sorry, I forgot to press the little slideshow.
That's all good.
The slideshow on the back. Currently, I think what we're doing is we're doing about 18,000 cups a day, but it's a moving target based on, first of all, what vegetables we use, the production process that we adjust every day, the chefs, the volunteers that we have on the day. Some chefs, based on their backgrounds, their cooking skills, their abilities, some days we can do 2,400 liters of soup, some days we're getting 1,800 liters of soup, some days we're getting 3,000 liters of soup. On average, we're working about 18,000 cups of soup a day. Because I don't like to try and tell people we do more than we can, because then we create an expectation and we can't deliver. So, yes, 18,000 cups a day.
Okay, so now tell me, what goes into 18,000 cups of soup must be quite a lot of produce. So how are you sourcing that produce?
It's a lot of vegetables. Currently, we're looking at about, if you're looking at 18,000 cups of soup a day, we're working on a 250 milliliter portion per soup. So 1 liter of soup gives you 4 portions. So you need quite a lot of vegetables. It started with bags of carrots and potatoes, and we peel it and we cook it. Then it became more, and I got a couple of friends. We ended up with 1,000 kilograms of vegetables. That's where it started. Soupathon 1,000 kilograms of vegetables. I thought was a good idea at the time. We ended up with 1,571 liters of soup. I thought that would be enough for lockdown. Completely underestimating the need, the dire need out there, and the massive demand. And it lasted me 7 days. So I ended up phoning the 10 chefs back, my mates, my friends, who I initially got to come and help me out with my idea. And they all said, no, come back. I mustn't tell anybody. I said, no. Let's look at the big picture. And I split the initial 10 guys up into 5 groups of 2, and I got them to bring 8 of their mates. And then we started making soup for a week, and it just snowballed. And we realized that we couldn't make soup quick enough, even with the 5-star chefs and all the chef de parties and the sous chefs in the kitchen. And it just into the soup making machine. And the faster we made soup, the quicker we realized we weren't making enough soup. So, and that's where it goes. And we're working with chef volunteers. The chefs volunteer there. Some of them don't have jobs anymore. They've lost their jobs. Some of them are now earning a fraction of their salaries. We provide them a very good lunch. Some guys aren't earning salaries, so we give them a very, very, very small amount of money to assist with getting them here and back, being it a transport fee, a taxi fee, or a little bit of money for petrol. We give them a nice lunch, humble lunch, but something nice and healthy to eat. And then we get farmers assisting us with these enormous volumes of vegetables, about 1.1 to 1.5 tons a day. And markets in the morning, and I now buy directly from the markets. Some of the agents have been absolutely amazing, and I'm now buying from the agents at the market at their cost to the farmers. So, for instance, £2.40 for a kilogram of potato that anybody would buy at the market, I'm paying £1.75 for. Explain to the guys what I do, and they now helping me to, because it's not every rand that I save, it's every cent that I save gives me another cent to spend a cup of soup. So it's unlike a normal business where you're trying to save money, where your objective of the goal is every cent you save is a cup of soup more you can make. Because if you save 5 rand, you can buy 5 rands more worth of potatoes. So it's really a beautiful thing. The more money you save, the more potatoes you can buy. And that's how with doing my rounds and meeting people, you get referred to people. And I met the guy that grows tomatoes, and his waste tomatoes are now my soup tomatoes for the mere reason that there's a perception in the market of how a tomato must look. Mustn't have a brown little spot on. Nothing wrong with it. It's just where the tomato touched the stem. And the market or retail South Africa rejects it as a substandard product, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with it other than the visual appeal of the fruit. So now I'm a ton of tomatoes plus a month, or plus a week, sorry, not even a month, from the tomato farmer, which he used to pay 2,000 rand a week for to have it driven to a landfill. And I'm turning it into beautiful tomato soup, and I'm giving it away. Which, and I'm getting goosebumps as I'm telling it, because I'm having great difficulty understanding why the world works like that.
Yes.
We found statistics on the internet that 30% of the food grown in this country ends up as animal feed or landfills, and it's like, how does this happen? Because if you've got all that money ending up in a landfill, well, doesn't that mean that we're paying for it on the shop shelf? Because this farmer still needs to pay that cost to have that machine rejected and throw it away. So I want to become the guy who picks the farmers to buy that at his cost, so he gets that money back. And in the long run, I'm getting cheap vegetables, and every retailer in the country starts selling it for cheaper to the end user, which is the guys that can afford it. So in that way, I can feed the people that can't. It's a very simple concept. It's all about money, not exchanging hands, but just using what's there.
And I think that's really, really vital, Wynand, because food waste is something I think I'm very passionate about, because like you say, the volumes of food waste that we are getting rid of globally and locally is just horrendous. And I think COVID has really put a highlight on the fact that there is so much need. The welfare of people has really been put under strain because of this virus, this pandemic, and because of people being unable to work and unable to get food. So we have this massive problem of food waste on one hand, and we have this huge demand in the communities where people have no food. And I think the role that you are playing is absolutely pivotal, because you're connecting those two things. You're saying, let's take this waste food, let it not go to landfill, let this guy not be paying money for it to be sent to landfill, and at the same time we're feeding people who don't have access to healthy, nutritious food. Because one of the other things that we're seeing with during the pandemic is a conversation about malnutrition. There is food being given out, but it's the nutrition value of the food that isn't adequate, And I think where you're talking about pumping, tomatoes and carrots and vegetables into a soup, you're talking about a very high nutrition value as well, which is, which is just another benefit. And I think in many ways, COVID has one of the things I think it's done is really shown how innovative South Africans are. And I think the Soupathon is just one example of that, how the need and the situation has actually driven a solution to an existing problem of food waste. And like you say, every cent you save is going back into furthering that objective, which I think is really just a win-win all around.
All right, I'm so glad you brought up nutrition, and the end result of this needs to be win-win. I mean, worldwide, I'm a very big supporter of green initiatives, energy saving, and this whole project in a positive way has been riddled with energy saving and using waste, rubbish, things that would take up land, use energy that would just be spent and be wastage. Landfill, we're saving landfill space now. I get tomatoes from the farmer, which used to be garbage that he had to get driven away, filled in, thrown in a hole, and covered up with sand. Now those tomatoes, now to put it into monetary terms, because I think a lot of people always thinks about money, which is a sad thing, because the world and every system that's in place revolves around money. Everything is always too expensive or too cheap. So it's horrible always to have to relate everything back to money and not to emotions, feelings, and deeds. So I've got a truck on the sidewalk of my building. I'm in the city centre, as close as possible to Grooteskier Hospital, to give you a geographic location. It costs me 350 Rand for the diesel that it takes my 4-ton truck to drive to Paarl and back. I pick up in weight, if I had to quantify it in rands, 24,000 rands worth of tomatoes. at what the retailer would sell for it, not the person that pays for it on the shelf. So that's a large volume of money. I drive that back for the cost of 350 rand. So I'm already up 23,000 plus rand. I then sort through it and take a couple, let's say we take 1,000 rand for labor off. So I'm sitting with 22,500 rand worth of tomatoes. We put it through a system, we sort through it. The tomatoes get a little bit too soft to cut with a knife. We put that into a soup pot, we make soup from it. All the really nice firm tomatoes that there's nothing wrong with it other than a little bit of a visual defect. But 100% fit for human consumption. Those all get washed, we all put them through a nice little water solution, and we pack them in crates and we distribute them to roughly about 52 soup kitchens or food outlets or outreach projects of various shapes and sizes throughout Cape Town, where we've got a system where they come and collect from us. And I'll discuss that distribution system with Adela a little bit later. A separate production and distribution system from the same point of view. And as you can see on the screen, we've got that system in place with apples. And these are all things that weren't supposed to be used or be offered into a very, very cheap market where it's not really viable for a farmer. So all of this stuff is negative money. It was nothing before and it cost money to dispose of. And all of a sudden we're sitting with a product that we can feed 24,000 rands, or let's take all the expenses off. We end up with most probably 18,000 rands worth of product for free. And we're now feeding people with it. Now it's a major source of iron, vitamins, minerals, all the good things that you in food. You end up with a tomato soup, but now we've taken a step further. Now we see who receives our tomato soup. Now we're getting ladies coming back in the community and said, wow, we really enjoyed the soup, but we received some pasta and chicken from somewhere. So we made a pasta bake. And we used the soup as the source for the pasta bake. So all of a sudden, they created a meal with a tomato soup. I never thought of it, but that's what we got back. So all of a sudden, there's a little light bulb that goes on. Let's not blend it so fine, make it a little bit more chunky, and then put out the call on our WhatsApp groups and say, who would like tomato soup and who would like a chunky tomato sauce? The next thing you know, yesterday I get a photo of somebody that had spaghetti, pasta, chicken necks, and chunky tomato sauce. All of a sudden, it's morphed from a garbage tomato into a delicious dinner for 2,000 people. And this used to be garbage bin food. Nutrition, what we're doing with the nutritional aspect, we've been approached by several amazing people out there. Currently, there's some people at Stellenbosch University helping us out with dietary analysis of the soups. Because we recognize the dietary impact that we can make here, because a lot of the emergency and disaster relief is starch and sugar based.
Yes.
So what people are actually eating and they're not hungry, they're being malnourished. And especially younger kids with early childhood development, you need the vitamins for early brain development, childhood organ development. The stuff that I don't really know enough about, I see it on TV every now and then, and everybody that has small kids are concerned about it. So with the vitamin and the mineral impact that we can have, not just for kids, but for the elderly as well, and in the middle of winter. So we work with vitamin enrichment, like what they did with maize earlier, or a couple of years ago in South Africa, something like that.
Yes, yeah. Wynand, it's fascinating, and I could hog your time for ages, but I want to introduce Adele. Adele has obviously a lot of experience. She's an ex-EHP, so I'm going to hand over to her now to discuss some of the food safety related aspects of what you're doing, because obviously that's the sort of the topic this week is, even in the midst of doing good, food safety has to still be a priority. So over to Adele.
Yes, thank you, Bee. Wynand, it's such a privilege speaking to you, and I'm so honored for your valuable time to speak to us. But yeah, as we know, this whole week is all about, ensuring safe food and food safety. Now, listening to everything that you've said, and you're using a garbage tomato, and then you talk nutrition in the same sentence, so in general.
I was coin that phrase, a garbage tomato. My farmer would like that, I'll tell you.
Yeah, so the thing is, but how are you ensuring that the food, that the soup that you are giving out there to those people, you know, that needs nutrition so badly? Obviously, we can't make those people sick. So what are you doing in terms of food safety, you know, the whole process? Why did you decide that you're going to freeze the soup, you know, and tell me a little bit more about your whole concept of ensuring that the soup that you are getting out there is safe.
To be honest, we slipped into it. We just slid into it for COVID. We had a pre-existing system in place, like I said to Bridget earlier, with us previously and for many, many years before COVID, had a system in place where we bring food back into our building that we didn't use at functions, or that we had out on functions, but it was still fine to use, and then we froze it. And when we had a gap in production or a quiet week at work, I mean, without me even knowing, I mean, I spend, I'd say, 50%, 60% of my time in my office and not in my kitchen anymore, because I'm now required to run a business and play with my calculator. So my staff does that, and then we had the system like I explained. We cook the frozen ingredients up, we puree up, we make a soup, and we put it in a tub. We freeze it in a tub. We freeze it. We take it out of the tub, vacuum pack it, and then we go drop these 10 kilogram or 10 1 liter frozen blocks off wherever we go. As we started doing this more often, we realized, okay, well, some places don't have enough freezer space. So every now and then, you know, you'd slip a freezer out the back entrance of a game or a Pick and Pay or some store, or you pick one up in an auction for nothing, and you'll end up forgetting it in the church somewhere on purpose, or you'll go visit the lady at the children's home and you'll drop some soup off in the freezer, and you know, on purpose you'll forget the freezer there and never go pick it up. So you know, every time. So just before lockdown, we filled everything up, and I had some stock in the freezer, and that's where the story started. But there was a pre-existing system in that was as low cost to us as possible and as simple for us as possible, because it's also a very big business decision that you need to take as a business. Because how can I say this without offending anybody, but charity needs to start at home. And I think so many businesses uses cost as an excuse to get involved in charity work or to do an outreach. Because, oh, it always costs money. It always costs money. It's always the first excuse. I know we can't help, we don't have money. And there's so many things that you do by just reaching your arm out or just doing 5 minutes worth of extra work that you can actually help. And we thought, well, bring back the food, cook the food, freeze the food, deliver the food. Wow, somebody we can help. So, and then we implemented the frozen soup system. Now we're sitting with a frozen product out of my building, which, if anybody knows me, I'm quite everything has its place and every place has its thing kind of guy. So I like my kitchen exceptionally clean, and one of my jokes is, remember when we walk into work tomorrow morning, it must look like this place was built yesterday. So I pride myself in a very clean kitchen. So from the health and hygiene point of view, from a kitchen operation, that's all in place. I'm the guy that the health inspector comes and visits and drinks a cup of coffee in my office. He doesn't pop into my building and surprise me, because there's nothing to be surprised about. So I get along with the right guys, and I listen to them. So what we do is if you look on the screen now, so we've got chefs with all the stuff and the goodies in, and then we have all the protecting gear. If we dispatch soup hot, which we don't do a lot because there's a risk factor involved. But then you look at the frozen soup system that you see on your screen now, and that's most probably a carrot, a butternut, and a beetroot soup. And that's how we dispatch it out. It's in a vacuum packed bag, so you're not anywhere near your temperature danger zone, which is your 7 to 63 degrees Celsius. It's also a bag that can be opened up, and you can break it up into smaller portions. So you're not dealing with 60 people soup. You can work with small batches of 6 people soup. You're running, again, out of your temperature danger zone. It's easy to control. It's easy to work with. No cross-contamination as long as your hands are clean. And remember, COVID doesn't get spread by the food, but you don't get COVID from the soup, you can get COVID from the cup. So now you need to manage the person managing the soup and not the actual physical soup. I think that's one thing that people need to understand about the soup and about COVID is you can't drink COVID, but you can get it from the cup you drink from.
Yes.
I think that sometimes it makes lost, and especially in the food game. So yeah, it's of cardinal importance of the health and the hygiene. If you look at the existing systems in place with HACCP, basically HACCP is there, and you put a couple of tweaks onto HACCP, and then this is it. This is where you need to go. So it's not reinventing the wheel. It's just improving of what you're doing existingly and putting a few extra systems and checks in place.
I'm so glad to hear that you are saying, you know, because we had a discussion earlier on with SGS and with RASA, the Restaurant Association, and other associations, you know, and everybody is saying that, you know, if you have a proper food safety management system in place, then you are actually already ready for COVID. But what extra type of things, because as you just said, you know, we can't get COVID from the food, but it's a human. So obviously you are very dependent on people, because I mean, you've got all the volunteers, you've got the distribution and things like that. So in what way did you implement steps to still, you know, the whole COVID concept, to bring that into your business? What did you do? What type of tips can you give out there to people and that you are seeing that's working?
Adele, you know, the biggest challenge has been people themselves. This is a different conversation for a different day with people that knows how our brains work. But I think our biggest challenge with COVID-19 is not actually COVID-19 itself. It's changing people's habits and behaviors. I'm a 45-year-old male. When my father walks into the building, the most difficult thing for me to manage about that moment is not to give my dad a hug and to give my dad a good hello kiss. When my friend Pete Goff Wood walks in the building, he's a celebrity chef, he's on TV, he's everybody knows who he is not to shake his hand and say, how's it, buddy? So it's breaking those behavioral patterns that's been hardwired into our brains. It's hugging your friends, it's picking your mate's kid up and giving him a hug and a kiss in the neck and say, hello to Uncle Wynand. It's those little moments. And what I find, it's not normally the lowest skilled workers where that problem occurs, because they are used to adhering to systems and to procedures, to standard operating procedures. I'm finding it's more middle to and higher management that's used to not walking down a clear set path and this is exactly how you have to do it. It's the guys that implements the systems. It's the guys that have free reign to implement the rules, that don't sit in the boardroom and then breaks the rules. So it's a very bizarre concept where the people making the rules are the people who's having the most difficulty implementing the rules. And it's like the school teachers are the naughty people at school. It's I don't know. The world's a very confusing place at this stage. And that's one of the things I'm battling with, is not with the lowest skilled, lowest paid staff members, but with management. It's like, guys, really. Small little implementation things is social distancing. Again, pulling it back to the behavioral thing, everybody likes a hug or a high five. Do you know how difficult it is to get a chef not to high five? I mean, out in the 90s, chefs have been high fiving. Try and get that out of a chef. It's impossible. It's like telling a chef that he's not allowed to play radio. I mean, it's like locking him up in a jail. So I think it's a very big behavioral adjustment. That's one of our biggest challenges. Because once the guy gets over that physical and social detachment, I think then it just becomes the way of life. Like we walk on with our kids in face masks, and our 15-year-old can't handle the feeling of having a claustrophobic feeling because he's got a cloth over his face. And he battles with getting used to that as adults, we understand it and we understand why. He battles with it. Just the same way adults forget not to high five or shake hands or hug and kiss. I mean, it happened yesterday, we're 10 weeks down. That's, I think, our biggest challenge is adults get used to things and they forget. First day, you sanitize the door handle. Second day, yeah. Third day, it's not so bad. You forget about it. That's, I think, our biggest food safety challenge in South Africa. And then, don't forget, you need to remind the people to keep on doing it.
Yeah.
It needs to be,
become a culture.
There's a horrible term, but it needs to become the new normal. I hate the word new normal because I don't think there'll ever be something as a new normal, because every day is a new day, every day brings its own challenges. And if you think it's your new normal today, well, it's going to change tomorrow. There is no such thing. But the new forward, or the new foundation of how things move forward, will be a lot more hygiene oriented.
Yes, and I'm so glad to see that that you're trying everything on your side. Is there any more of your presentation that you would like to share with us, or are you in terms of the food safety component? If not, I'm going to say thank you, and please keep on doing what you are doing, and appreciate that food safety is in the front for you and that you have implemented that. I think it's quite important. I think your last slide that you've got is giving information in terms of how people can get involved. But I want to hand over to B to end off the presentation for us. And thank you so much for your valuable time. We really do appreciate it. Thank you, B. Over to you.
Thanks, Adele. Wynand, yes, I just want to echo that. Thank you so much for giving us an insight into how you've taken a really awful situation and turned it into something actually really valuable from a number of aspects. And we will be sharing your information on our websites and on our social channels so that people can contribute and can help in whatever way that they can do. And yes, we wish you well, and we look forward to chatting with you again and seeing how things change in the next months ahead of 2020. So thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Bridget. Thank you, Alan. Thank you so much for helping us spread awareness of this. It's so important to us. Thank you. Chat soon.
Okay.
Thank you. Keep well. Bye-bye.
Take care. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. And yes, watch out for the rest of the world food safety stuff coming up in the lead up till Sunday. Bye.